Welcome back to the MLS Net Boys podcast. My name is Chase. I'm here with my good friend Jacob. How are you doing today, man?
I'm doing great. I'm excited to be here for episode 47 of the MLS Net Boys experience. If you're listening to this, it's probably after like 5 episodes just dropped and like
there's been a little breakdown in the production chain here, unfortunately.
Life
happens.
Miscommunication.
As we've said before, this is like our third job for everybody involved here in our...
It's all for passion.
It's all for passion. We play for passion here. You know, unlike those Euro snobs.
That's right. Get it out early. Let anybody new know where we stand.
You know, we're here to really talk about our local league, to dive into the passion that is local soccer, not to just support some oil-rich, country-ran club in England. And you know what? I'm just going a monologue for like 30 minutes about how much I hate the Prem.
It's all right. This will be a bonus episode.
This is just not even going to talk about MLS for this whole podcast, just rant about the Prem.
Week 2 of MLS in the books. You know, actually, no, pet peeve. This is what MLS is saying. This is week 3 of MLS.
Matchday 3.
Matchday 3. Because they're counting that Wednesday they gave Miami the prime spot to play. I think that's stupid.
What do you think about the conspiracy that they gave Miami that first midweek game, and then obviously it's going to shake out, but I had a feeling, and I saw somebody say this, that like they gave Miami that Wednesday game, then had them play on the weekend, and then now they're matched up with the rest of the league so that they could like get out to an early lead and have some stupid record later on, be like, oh, they were at the top of the supporters shield for like this many days before winning the league. Like, I feel like that'd be some weird grimy, like...
That's definitely a thing they'd orchestrate for Miami. I mean, there's no reason why... The only reason they're giving them that slot is because the star power on that team.
And if they even got a draw in that first game and then proceeded to win from there, then they have that one extra point that puts them above everybody else if they play on the same match days as everybody else to stay at the top of Supporter Shield.
You don't think that was for RSL as well for some leveraging power?
Yeah, I think so, actually. I think they really wanted to boost Justin Glad's stock this year, try and get him into that U.S. national team. So.
That's right. I don't know. For me, opening game of the season, what I would like them to do is almost like is it the Charity Shield where they take the... Which one is that in England? You know what I'm talking about?
Community Shield.
Community Shield, yeah. Sorry. Almost like that, I guess. You could do like either that or like a rematch of the MLS Cup. I'd like to see Shield versus MLS Cup winner, something like cool like that.
I'll take that, and I'll do you one better. The Wooden Spoon Shield. You take the worst 2 teams from last year
from each conference.
You pit them against each other, and you see who's improved more.
You got Colorado hosting Toronto if this was last year.
That would be a sick matchup first day of the season. Because then one of those teams gets off to a flyer. You know, they might...
Maybe.
It might be a 0-0 draw. Who knows?
Picture if the MLS season opened up in a, like, snowed out game in Colorado that got weather delayed and...
They just play half the game.
0-0, orange ball. There's like 200 people in the stands.
There was a snow game this weekend, and I was thoroughly surprised to see how many people were still in that stadium. I didn't even go to the Timbers game because I thought the weather was going to be too crappy to go.
I did go. I can confirm it was cold.
It seemed terrible. I mean, it was like snowing early in the day. Nothing was sticking, of course. But it just looked like it was going to be just a brutally cold game to go stand or sit or whatever you're doing.
These are the sort of games, and I mean, similar in Seattle, it's been really like record cold temperatures up there for like match days. These are the things that make a winter calendar switch not feasible. I mean, RSL's first home game, you see this happening. And I know as a fan, being in a more northern state where my team plays, I would not want to be trotting out 30-ish degree weather for games, sitting there in the cold, as opposed to, because those summer nights watching MLS games are awesome. Those are the best.
Yeah. No, I've gone to many a Timbers games where we sit on the old side of the stadium where it's just bench seating still, and in the winter you can definitely tell. Like, it's kind of funny because during the summer people try and like spread out as much as they can. In the winter, people are a lot more willing to just like cozy up, and like people get like way tighter in that section, and you almost get like decently warm, not just because you're covered, but you just have like a mass amount of people who are all kind of like pretty tightly pushed together. But yeah, I agree. Like that's one of the things that I think will never change and probably should never change in this league is the timing of the schedule. Because imagine the amount of games they would have to cancel in like RSL or like Colorado. I mean, I don't know. That would just be a mess to handle.
I was gonna say half of those teams get like, snowed out anyway with these earlier.
It's kind of like, I don't know. One thing I love, this is a little off topic. One thing I love about MLS is like how there's so many different climates that teams get to use to their advantage. Like you see it in like Texas in the summer. Like Houston is just a horrible place to go, and they just play so well. They use it to their advantage. Like Colorado uses that altitude to their advantage. The cold weather, a lot of times, the snow, stuff like that. It's just, I think it's fun. I think it adds to the league for sure.
I agree. It adds a different dimension when it comes to home field advantage, what you can do. I see a lot of, the funny thing is this, we can just jump right in and start with this game with LAFC losing 3-0 at RSL in the snow. It got like delayed, pushed out. There was a ton of snow on the field. Chicho Arango scores and starts doing snow angels against his own old team as a celebration. Cherundolo was like furious in the post game.
Who?
Just some guy with a lot of excuses for his club. And people were saying last year, maybe it was a couple years ago, he was complaining that a game was like too hot. So he's complaining that it's too hot. He's complaining that it's too cold. This guy always has an excuse.
Jurgen Klopp syndrome.
That's funny, actually. When you were, this is completely off topic to anybody listening, but in our soccer group chat, we were talking about our favorite coaches of all time. When you said Jurgen Klopp, I was going to send a list somebody made of the Klopp excuses. It was just like 15 different things he's used.
I know it's a bit of his history. I still love that coach to death.
Yeah, and I don't know. It's just one of those things when you play for one of the most, or coach one of the most spoiled teams in the league. You have good weather. I mean, this is one of those things where I'm in all favor of not canceling this game unless it's like pretty clear they can't play. And I don't think it was that bad. It was a lot of snow. It was rough, but
it does change the game completely. When you have a team like LA who's just spoiled by their weather, they get like a perfect training facility, and then they have to go to RSL, and they have to play with an orange ball that just like can barely move across the snow. Did you see the goals in this game? Like,
yeah,
they just looked brutal, man. Like I don't think this game would have ended the same way had it not been played in the snow. But that's kind of the beauty of it. Like, I don't know. It's the unpredictability that you face that, like, at the end of the year, nobody is going to look at LA's record or RSL's record and think about these 3 points that happened because of the snow. But I love it. I think it's awesome, partially because I'm not the biggest LAFC fan. Also, I mean, Timbers have done it. We've gone away. We've played a snow Clasico, But I don't know. Awesome game. 3-0 to RSL. You love to see it. LAFC getting a little humbled early on in the season. Chicho Arango celebrating against his old club. What's your take on that?
He did it last year too. He scored against them but didn't celebrate. So this time, I don't know. With the circumstances, I feel like it was. I didn't think it was more disrespect. I think it was more just like, we're playing in the snow. This is just kind of a crazy experience, and he was just having fun.
I'd agree. It sounds about right.
Didn't seem venomous or like ill-willed. I think from his previous experiences there, he showed he's like grateful to everybody at the club. So,
Yep, I would agree. Moving on, though, I mean, not too much else to really dive into that game because it's kind of hard to have any real takeaways, like from the style, like any of the stats. I mean, it's just such an anomaly of a game. Moving on, though, we got Minnesota hosting Columbus in their home opener. Minnesota just absolutely steals some points off Columbus at the death here. They didn't look bad. I mean, they definitely grew into the game as it went on. But Columbus went up 1-0 through Cucho in the 59th minute. And then Minnesota with nearly the last kick of the ball in the 95th minute with, let's try and say this guy's name, Tani Oluwasei. A super draft pick from 2022. Just kind of, did you see this goal? Like,
I did.
Picks it up off like a kind of a scrappy like clearance from across, and then just like turns and just like elegantly just kind of like places the ball in the top corner from like a really tight angle through a crowd of people. Like, pretty mature finish for a guy that isn't really a lights out goal scorer by any means.
Yeah, it was awesome to see if you're a Minnesota fan. I mean, getting a draw, especially when you're down and it's in stoppage time, it's dramatic like that. It's one of those ones that feels like a win. Columbus, going to feel hard done by. This feels like prime, like 2 years ago crew where they were blowing all these leads and stuff.
Yeah.
Cucho had a nice goal in the first half. And did you watch this game? Did you see the penalty no call that was in this match?
I saw bits and pieces. I wasn't able to watch the whole thing.
There was a moment when a crew player got collided with by Dane St. Clair. I think it was Yaya Boa, actually, and it wasn't given as a pen. It definitely could have been, in my opinion. So if I'm Columbus, I'm feeling a little disappointed. But, I mean, draw on the road in MLS is never truly bad on paper.
Not a bad thing. There's a long way to go in this season. There's a long road left, and Columbus still looks good. I mean, they had the same issue last year, too, like learning how to close out games. I think they'll iron it out. Cucho is red hot right at the start of the season. Looking good for my Golden Boot pick here. I think he's going to be solid throughout the rest of the year.
That's good to know. One thing I'll bring up, though, and it's only 2 games in, so can't take too much out of it. Only 1 goal scored in each game by Columbus, which last year they were blowing teams out of the water by the end of the season. Maybe it's preseason form still lingering around. We'll see. I wouldn't press the panic button if I were them, but just interesting to me so far.
Yeah, I don't know. I
lost air there for a second.
I was just deflated real quick. No, it definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's only 2 games in. To be fair, they played against a solid Atlanta team that front to back is pretty good and has a really lethal attack that kind of forces Columbus to sit in a little bit more, be a little bit more wary of them. And then a Minnesota team that was pretty juiced at home. What made you laugh there, dude? What the heck?
It's that appointment of Eric Ramsey that's got everybody in Minnesota fired up.
You know what's funny is like I was pretty high on this team at the start of the season, and you weren't. And
I wasn't.
They've looked pretty good from the start. You know what I was just thinking is like, oh man, like I'm gonna prove them wrong. Like Minnesota's gonna be good. Watch Eric Ramsey come in and just tank this team, and they just become absolutely terrible all of a sudden.
Or Reynoso shows back up or starts playing again, and something goes wrong. Yeah, I don't know. Definitely. I mean, 4 points out of those first 2 games away at Dallas. And then, was it Dallas the first week? Right? They beat Dallas on the road?
Yeah, I believe so.
No, they beat Austin. My bad.
The other Texas team.
So.
That's right. Yeah, they did beat Austin.
Beating Austin, which isn't for
Most
everybody.
Impressive.
But. And then getting a draw against the Crew, that's not a bad start at all, especially after missing the playoffs last year. With now your coach coming in, you can build. I think it's exciting times. Let's move on, though, to the Sunshine rivalry. I don't really want to talk about it because I'm sure you've seen it. I've seen it.
What a game. I just want to talk about it purely because it'd be disrespectful not to.
Because of the last game, Inter Miami won 5-0. The last game for DeAndre Yedlin going out against Orlando City.
Unfortunately. He started the game as well. This is a very odd sale. So Inter Miami obviously still having to make room on the roster. Official today, they've sold DeAndre Yedlin to Cincinnati.
How much for, specifically?
172 $499. I don't know. It was
something like that.
A very specific number. Clearly trying to just stay within roster compliance. Miami, though, looked like they were just way too much to handle for Orlando from the start, which kind of crazy to see. I mean, Luis Suarez, I agree. I don't think he's looked too great so far. Messi's been lights out from the start of the season as well. True star of this game, though, Julian Gressel. 3 assists. The unsung hero of Inter Miami.
Definitely looking like I'm eating my word. This was another signing I wasn't super high on. I think I was just pessimistic about Miami. Sick of hearing about him. But, yeah, Gressel looks good. Messi looks unstoppable. Suarez finally, looked like he could run out there. That's just the difference. Like, I don't know what it is between last game. Maybe it was just fatigue, jet lag, being tired. But man, he looked like a wooden plank out there. And then this game, he was like unbeatable. It was crazy.
How do they fill this hole of DeAndre Yedlin? I mean, he's their captain, former captain.
Pretty much.
Do they shift Julian Gressel out there, or do they keep him in the midfield? He's been solid for them to the middle of the field, so.
I was thinking, yeah, you're right, because Yedlin seemed to fit decently well as a both leader on and off the pitch and in this system. I think what they'll do is they just sign Redondo, that younger Argentinian player, shift him to the midfield, put Gressel back. That's what I'm assuming.
That's what I was thinking as well. Or Jean Mota has found some time in the midfield as well. It's going to be interesting. I think Tata Martino is the right guy to figure this out because he's been really not super strict with the way this team is played. He's allowing a lot of free flow. Julian Gressel was playing in the midfield, but he's making a lot of runs beyond Messi, beyond Suarez. So I don't know. I think they'll be able to figure it out, but I'm not super sold on this team long term. I think the fact that they're having to sell these guys, DeAndre Yedlin, having to lose a guy like that who's proven, who's American, who isn't an international spot, that has a lot of experience, is still probably one of the best right backs in the league, and then bring in kind of an unknown quantity and a young Argentinian. It could work out. I don't know. It could hit. We never know, but I think we'll see. I think it wasn't the smartest move for them here, though.
Yeah, same with Greg Gore. I feel like who they let go a couple weeks ago. Solid CDM. I know he was hurt last year, but he was one of their better players pre-Leagues Cup. Probably their best, honestly. He's gone. Like you said, I think this team will be look unbeatable in these short little bursts, but then they're going to come back to reality like how it did post-Leagues Cup for Miami. That's just my prediction. They got a lot of games ahead of them, 4 games in 10 days with a Champions League tie.
That is rough.
And they're playing Nashville in the Champions Cup. So, they're going to be
the throwback.
This is going to be a testy Leagues Cup rematch.
Yeah, that's going to be rough. 4 games in 10 days. I don't know. Inter Miami is just, I think we're going to see this roller coaster all year with them. The ceiling for them is really, really high. Obviously, clearly higher than anybody else in the league, but the floor seems like it's just, there is no floor. It could be really bad, or it could be their floor could still be better than Austin's ceiling. They're like the upstairs neighbor.
True. They'll be better than Austin. That's our prediction.
That is a bold prediction right there.
How about a more exciting game? Vancouver Whitecaps home opener versus Charlotte FC. A 1-1 draw. Ryan Raposo and Yuri Tavares scores for Charlotte. Point apiece. Charlotte, decent start to the year as well. They've got 4 points out of 2 games.
It's still so early, but it is another team I was somewhat high on in our predictions for the year. I think I had them like barely squeaking into playoffs, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, Charlotte looking surprisingly good. Vancouver looking like their typical just middle of the pack, like Crystal Palace-esque self.
They were the only team, too, the opening weekend did not play. They were the one team with a bye week, too.
So they had an extra week.
This is their big show. It was a draw at home to Charlotte, which is disappointing.
Draw at home with your left back scoring the only goal. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm not super high on Vancouver.
Just same. You know what I wish they would have done? I wish they would have pushed hard for DeAndre Yedlin, since Richie Larea, that move didn't obviously pan out.
Yeah.
They need another kind of more attacking fullback who can play on the wing back, kind of like Yedlin. I think that would have been solid.
He's wanting to go to Vancouver over Supporter Shield winners Cincinnati?
I mean, no, off of a purely game point standpoint, but he would be a lot closer to home, to Seattle area, if that were the case. But
that might be one of the reasons why he wouldn't want to go there.
That is true. Who knows how? I mean, he is a homegrown player for Seattle. I mean, I don't think he would ever sign for Portland, but I mean, we saw Freddie Montero go to.
That's true.
Whitecaps.
I think he's probably just afraid of the competition. I don't think he's getting past Javane Brown, dude. There's no shot.
But he's getting past Alvis Powell? Well, no, Powell plays more center back these days, doesn't he?
Yeah, he kind of shifts into that back three.
Charlotte, though, getting some additional firepower. Celtic FC winger Liel Abada, Israeli international. Looks like he's signing to be a young DP at Charlotte. Do you think he'll be better than Kamil Jazwiak?
I think I could be better than Kamil Jazwiak.
That's the bar right now. So
that's not very hard to get over that. Plus, just the energy around this club seems so much different right now, like so much better.
Dino Smith,
Dino Smith, has got these boys flying. He's gone in there. He's bought into the culture of the club. He's brought a little bit of that English charm with him. You know what they're so well known for.
The Phil Neville.
The Phil Neville.
The Phil Neville starting at a.
I can't
MLS
wait for
club.
that game, dude.
They're playing each other this year.
That's gonna be an awesome.
That's
See those
crazy.
two on the sideline. You know they're going out for a glass of red wine after the game, dude.
Don't forget Liam Ridgewell too.
Oh yeah, the three of them are gonna have some beans on toast or something. Make them feel like they're at home.
That's gross. Yeah, I don't know. Good start for Charlotte. I think I had them finishing pretty poorly, honestly. I didn't think they really did a ton this offseason. I wasn't really impressed. They got rid of their best player. But so far, been proven wrong. Dino Smith right in the ship.
You'll love to see it. I honestly wasn't very high on that signing, but I kind of like that he's doing well. It's weird. I have like a disdain for the Premier League and like English fans and players, but I have like a weird affinity for like English coaches. I don't know why.
There's something about the charm of
an old Brit.
That's why I think of them as like the reverse Ted Lasso when they come to MLS and have to deal with all these wonky like rules and stuff and just a completely different type of supporters culture.
I kind of love it. I think it's because it's like most of the like British coaches are like the old age like British dudes, and then like a lot of the fans and players are like this new age like Man City era, like
want to play an up tempo,
like
pretty looking soccer.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that. We'll see what side Eric Ramsey falls on.
I hope he sticks with his like ethos where he was a set piece coach, where they're just playing for corner kicks and.
Hey, that could be dangerous when you got freaking bobblehead Timo Pukki on the end of that in Minnesota.
Oh man, Next up, Chicago Fire home opener hosting FC Cincinnati. Cincinnati goes and wins 2-1 against Chicago. Decent crowd in Chicago, I will say, for a Chicago Fire home game. Miles Robinson gets his first goal for Cincy. It ends up being the winner. Good bounce back for Cincy after not beating Toronto at home last week. Only up from here for Chicago. Or down.
I was gonna say it's quite the statement there. I don't know if it could only be up. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it looked good for a while for Chicago there, but it's just so like predictable.
They're getting no service, so they spent big money on their DP number 9.
I was gonna say, how many shots has
I saw he had
Hugo Kuipers had?
He's had 1 shot in 2 games so far.
Man,
so
that's brutal.
What do you
imagine being this big money signing for this club? Like, you're supposed to be the future, and you show up, and you get to take 1 shot in 180 minutes of playing the game. More than that, probably. Add like 20 minutes of stoppage time across 2 games.
Yeah,
he's played 200 minutes and got 1 shot.
Yeah, I think definitely. I don't know what I mean, obviously getting better service. Does that look like more of a winger for Chicago? They've got Shaqiri, Chris Mueller, Brian Gutierrez, whoever slots in at the 10, and then the other 2 out wide. It seems decent on paper, honestly, but obviously it's not if this isn't working yet. Do you think the Shaqiri show should be over? I know he scored a PK in this game, but he is one of the most wage-wise expensive players in the league.
I think it's too hard to get rid of a guy like that now. Even if they wanted to, I don't think they could just... Nobody's going to try and buy him off of you. He's making too much money to just mutually agree to let him go. I think they're kind of stuck with him till the end of this contract, unfortunately.
Unless San Jose. They've been in the market for aging out of their prime.
That would
DP.
Be, dude, a 3-5-2. You got Shaqiri and Carlos Vela up top. Jeremy Bovacy floating right underneath.
Smacking, just letting the...
Actually, just do a 4-2-4. Put Jordan Shaqiri, Carlos Vela, Preston Judd, Jeremy Bovacy up top. Let those boys run wild. That's prime.
Jackson Ewell and Carlos or Grazo.
That's like prime, like Barcelona, like MSN plus like Iniesta behind them. Like that would be fun to watch.
Love that. I will say Shaqiri seems like, watching some of the content from Chicago. Yeah, I did that, and he was like leading like the pregame like speeches and stuff, and in the huddles and stuff. He seems pretty bought in, and it's a younger-ish team, so having a leader like that with a lot of experience, maybe that's a benefit. He hasn't been terrible. He just hasn't been like quality like you'd expect from a big money player like him.
Do you think he would be better if he was at a different MLS team right now?
Probably. I would assume so. I think we've seen for so many years Chicago Fire is so broken.
I feel like they're just cursed, man.
He's not going to be the one to save them. I mean, to be fair, though, they've had a rough start to the season in terms of opposition. They went to Philadelphia Union, one of the better teams in MLS the last few years, and then playing at home against Cincy. So those are, in most people's eyes, 2 top-tier teams. We'll see how they do against like a more like a DC or a Red Bull or NYCFC.
I think they're gonna have a real tough time. I mean, they're in the Eastern Conference, and that conference is stacked, man. And I just realized Jordan Shaqiri is only 5'5". That's a short king right there for you.
That's enough time talking about Chicago and Fire and Cincy. We're gonna move on. FC Dallas hosting CF Montreal. Montreal with the win on the road. First win for Laurent Courtois. Peter Musa scores for Dallas on his debut, which is exciting. And then also, who else? Joseph Martinez gets the winner in this game first goal for his new club.
The king returns, man.
But good, solid start for Montreal. 4 points, getting a draw at Orlando City, and now getting 3 points at FC Dallas in Dallas. And then they get to finally go home. This is a great start to the year.
Yeah, this is huge for Montreal. I mean, like we talked about, this is a team that probably is going to be like greater than the sum of its parts. Like, they don't have a ton of solid standout players, but I think if they really buy into Courtois' like philosophy, I think they're going to have a pretty solid year. Dallas, on the other hand, though, still just low on players, man. I mean, they had one DP in this game, which was Musa. But other than that, I mean, it's just looking rough. I mean, luckily they had some guys come back into the game. Jesus Ferreira got subbed in, Paxton Pomacall, Sebastian Lletget. So some of these guys that they've been missing are kind of getting back into the fray of things, but
I've seen Dallas fans online kind of poking at Nico Estevez that he seems bent on trying this like 3 at the back formation, which is a reoccurring theme this week in MLS. And he doesn't really have the personnel for this to work at the moment. It doesn't feel like. That's at least what some Dallas fans were saying online.
Telling me Omar Gonzalez anchoring a back 3 in 2024 isn't a winning recipe?
It feels a little rough at first. I mean, we'll see. It's tough when you're watching these early season games and teams are trying new things and they're getting punished or it's not working or, they have a lopsided schedule to read too much into it. But
yeah, I would agree with that.
I mean,
it's a fair statement.
2 home games, 3 points out of 6. Not ideal for Dallas, but exciting for Montreal. I'm personally pretty happy about that. We've talked about Montreal being a team that the fans, the city deserves a little bit of love, a little bit of success. So I think that's cool. Moving on, Houston Dynamo hosting Red Bull New York. And New York Red Bulls win 2-1. I don't know why I said it that way. It's because
you're reading like the logo.
I was reading it from like the MLS like box score and their RBNY. But 2-1 win on the road for the Red Bulls. Lewis Morgan gets a nice goal on his return. Well, not return, but he didn't really play much last year.
Good start for Red Bulls. I mean, a win and a draw, so solid start to the. It's only 2 games in, but solid start to the year for them. And Houston just
both games on the road for Red Bulls as well.
Houston looking rough without Ache. It's just
Carrasquillo with a nuts pass. I'll say I don't know if you saw that first goal, but he just pinged an absolute pinpoint ball.
That guy's a baller, man. He's not staying in the league for long. He's a baller. I will say, I mean, Houston's depth is just looking rough. Like, there's been, I think it was like 3 or 4 teams who weren't able to even fill like their substitute slots. Timbers are one, Houston was the other. I forget who the third. I think
Seattle's been decimated too. Houston, yeah, with high-level players out. Sebastian Ferreira, Hector Herrera, you have Quinones out, just not looking great.
They were linked with Albert Elise, and then he like had to be put into like an induced coma in France before he like. There's just it feels like there's a curse around Houston right now. It's really unfortunate because they're kind of in like a win now phase right now. Like this is a team that isn't built for the future. Like they're gonna lose some of these guys. Ache isn't getting any younger. And they just, I don't know what their front office plan is. It's like, yeah, you guys did great last year. We're not going to help you out at all. Like, we're not going to help sign anybody new.
Yeah, I'm curious to see. They've got Champions League upcoming as well. They advanced. They took out St. Louis. So now juggling more games on top of that, it's going to be interesting for sure. Bummer of a start to league play for them, though. Point at home against SKC last week, and now 0 points from home against Red Bulls. So only a point from 2 home games is not great at all. Next, however, Sporting Kansas City hosting the Philadelphia Union. Kind of a nuts end to this game. It was 1-1. Remy Walter scores to put Kansas City up 20th minute. Then Bedoya, last kick of the game, steals a point for Philly. The replacement refs had a little bit of a controversy in this one. There was a ball that went out of bounds, clearly went off a Philadelphia player, but the ref didn't see it that way, so Philly gets the ball, they advance, end up scoring off of a corner kick later on. So
love it. I love the just chaos and the controversy and whatnot and taking points off of these Western Conference teams.
That's right. Helps
But
us.
For whatever reason, I thought they had resolved the reffing. Like, I hadn't heard anything about it, but I thought they had resolved it this weekend because all the refs were wearing, like, the pro referee, like, badges on their shirts. Did you see that at all?
I noticed that, too. I didn't really think much about it, but, yeah, you're right.
I don't know. I don't remember if it was on the, like, shirts itself, but on the jackets they were wearing, like, the big puffy jackets. And then I was like, I wonder if it's just, like, leftover gear they had that like usually is supplied for the referees.
They took their clothes
and they just like gave it to these refs. But yeah, I don't know. It was interesting to see that they still haven't resolved the. What are your thoughts on the reffing after this first 3 match days?
I have two thoughts on it. The more extreme one is these refs have been rough. There's been a lot of dodgy calls, a lot of offsides that haven't been called, dodgy non-calls on penalties and stuff like that. There's definitely a quality difference, I think, is plain to see. These refs are, if you look at their games they play, it's definitely USL 1, lower. They're not used to these crowds, these players, these stadiums, the style and speed of play. But then more level-headed me and the more human me, somebody had a take on Twitter that was like, well, I've seen my team play 2 games. First game, decent reffing, wasn't great, but wasn't like awful. Second game had a couple rough calls, but feels like a normal week of MLS reffing. So,
yeah, I would partially agree. Like, it is nice kind of seeing new faces, like different referees out there, because after a while you start to see the same guys, and I don't know.
When Ted Uncle's on call for your game.
I feel like there has to be. I mean, it's true of like most professional sports. Like the players build a relationship with the referees, and that could be good or that could be bad. And seeing new faces out there isn't always a bad thing, but I do think there has been a quality difference, and I think that's probably been the best thing for the pro referees who are still negotiating, is like pointing to all these mistakes and like pointing to this huge quality difference. Not to mention, did you see the whole thing about the ref who's supposed to ref the Miami game?
Yeah, I did.
I was going to bring that up during that game, but apparently the original referee who was slotted for that game, somebody dug up like
he got busted on Twitter
before the game started, like that it was like a day or two before. There was like pictures of him in like Inter Miami jerseys and stuff. So luckily they caught that beforehand and swapped him out. Can you imagine if that came out after like a 5-0 game? Like
all the Ronaldo,
just chaos that would ensue after that would be like, so it would be very MLS.
All the Ronaldo fans were already like grasping on that, like online on Twitter and stuff, and being crazy with it. Did you also see the video? Messi was taking a free kick and it like hit a baby in the stands. it wasn't like it like really hit him, but it was like the baby was sitting there, the ball just kind of like smacks him, and you see all the comments are just like, Ronaldo would never.
You know what that reminds me of is
I had no issue to say.
One of our friends will back this up. He was there with me. I was at a Timbers game against Seattle once, behind the goal on the south side during the warm-ups. The south side is where the away team warms up. I watched Clint Dempsey just hammer a freaking laser beam of a shot past the goal, just nail a kid in the face, and watch the whole shot happen, proceeded to just turn around and jog to the locker room after. It was like his last shot. I absolutely despise Clint Dempsey, and to this day think it was on purpose.
Is it because of that moment or just him going to Seattle?
It was twofold. I already didn't like him because of that, because he was kind of a villain in the rivalry. But then seeing that happen, because I watched him do it. I watched him like watch the ball all the way through, hit the kid, zero remorse on his face. Like,
we got to find some like CCTV like from that gym like next door
from like 8 years ago. Oh man. Anyways, SKC Philadelphia tying 1-1. Man. We just completely hijacked this conversation away from these two teams.
Hey, sometimes it happens. At least we're not corporate MLS who's going to tell you what Messi had for brunch.
It was pizza with a bunch of tomatoes on it.
Let's move on. St. Louis hosting.
Nothing else you want to say about that game?
There's nothing else I want to say.
You don't want to break down the status of Alejandro Bedoya and how they could have cut him. All the narrative and the storyline behind that. You aren't invested in that?
No, I'm good. I mean, he's back. I mean, I'm surprised.
You fake fan, dude. You just don't even care.
I'm surprised it took that long with him, but it's great that he's back. It's great that he's
club legend.
You see a lot
at this point.
I feel like you've been seeing a lot in MLS. The older 33 or so plus age player, club legend at a team, wants to stay on said team, but with the roster restrictions, with salary cap, these teams aren't wanting to pay high level money for a player like that, even though they're symbolic, they're leaders. You have Bedoya, you've got the Vela thing, you've got Blanco last couple of years ago, Ladero in Seattle.
It's a bummer. I wish they would add some sort of roster rule around it. Like if you've had a guy at your club for more than like 5 years or 3 years even, and he's at a certain age, you could kind of almost treat him like a DP, or they wouldn't, a certain portion of their salary wouldn't count towards the cap. I don't know. It is a bummer though.
I think that'd be almost like a free agent signing where you're prioritizing people staying within the league, giving them benefits and stuff, but you're doing that for your specific club. I think that's a solid idea. Maybe like 5+ probably would be the minimum, I would say. Maybe 6-7 years, I don't know, for really just those club legends. And so you can get them paid, they can retire there, but then also they're not eating up your cap. I think that's a solid idea. Hire us, MLS.
Just to be the ideas guy. They just give us a corner office. Me and you just sit at a table like this and just spitball ideas all day long.
Commute to New York City once a month.
We just sit down and just talk into mics and just record random ideas about MLS.
Hope it gets to Don Garber one day.
Man, I think that would probably be the best thing for MLS, is if they let something like that happen.
Some real salty dogs go at it. Also, I forgot to mention, when we did predictions last week, Miami versus Orlando was one. I said Orlando is going to win 1-0. It's definitely wrong. You got Miami winning correct, so props to you.
I said 2-1. I thought it was going to be a bit closer. I didn't think Orlando was going to be that cheeks.
But anyway, another prediction game. That's why I brought it up. St. Louis beating NYCFC 2-0 in St. Louis. We both thought St. Louis would win, but we got the score wrong. But Samuel Adeniran, another goal, heating up once again. Seattle looking, especially when we get to their game, looking for goals. They had it in Samuel Adeniran. However, New York City looking rough.
Yeah. They had more possession per usual, but had less than half the amount of shots as St. Louis, with only one shot on target throughout the entire game. This team I feel like they just do rondos all practice long. They just play possession games. They know how to keep the ball well. They know how to move the ball well. They have a lot of quality, but just they need somebody to be the focal point of their attack, man. It is brutal to watch right now.
Do you think Nick Cushing, I wouldn't say he's on the hot seat yet, but say if he loses at home next week in their home opener, maybe one more week
against the Timbers as well.
Do you think he's gonna? What do you think that situation looks like? Timbers historically have been great there. They've never lost, actually.
I think it starts to heat up a little bit. I mean, he might have a little bit of an excuse because James Sands got a red card in this game, so I mean that's a key piece of their midfield gone for a game against one of the hotter teams in the league right now. I mean, it's so early, but the Timbers are looking pretty electric right now. So I don't know, man. I could see his seat to kind of warm up. I think the sack race right now is probably going to be between him and Greg Vanny, or not Greg Vanny. What's his name? I can't think of his name.
Where at?
L.A. Is that Vanny still?
FC?
Yeah,
Or Galaxy?
Galaxy.
Vanny. I think Vanny's at a good start to the year, actually.
My FM save has ruined my knowledge of MLS coaches.
I'm thinking more Gary Smith, possibly.
Oh, really?
At Nashville.
Really?
They got a draw in the death. Well, we'll get to it.
I don't know. I think the thing with Vanny at Galaxy is like he's had a solid start, but it's just like he was so close to being sacked that like if they have a poor run of form with like 3 rough games, I could see him just being out the door.
That's true. I think getting Will Kuntz as their, I forget if he's GM at the Galaxy, the former LAFC guy who's brought in Pencil and Peck.
Director of soccer operations or something like that.
That's right. That guy's been class so far, bringing in good signings. Their roster was pretty poor. A lot of it was Vanny. It definitely had his fingerprints on it, bringing in Eric Zavaleta and Chris Mavinga and Victor Vasquez, the old guard from Toronto. But let's just move on to that game, honestly. We can get to it. Cali Clasico in San Jose. San Jose's home opener. They brought out Jimmy Conrad to do the siren pregame. Another prediction one. I said LAFC, ooh, little slip there. I said LA Galaxy 2-0. You said 1-1 draw. Galaxy wins 3-1. Definitely
with only 6 shots, but all 6 were on target. I will give them that, which was the opposite of their game against Miami, where Joseph Paintsil was just blasting it over the crossbar from like the tightest angle known to man.
Yeah, I mean, you got your best players firing, it seems like. Joveljic, 2 goals. Ricky Puig scored in this one. Paintsil's looked pretty good so far. And just beaten down on poor San Jose, honestly. And one thing mentioning Will Kuntz was he was at this game just chilling, like with the LA Galaxy like supporters group in their away section, not even in the box seats, like getting connected with the fans. I think Galaxy's been doing everything right. They just were victim to a poor end of the game lapse last week, or else they'd be on 6 points.
That is true. I think they've had a solid start. I really do. I like the makeup of this squad now. I really do. I think Paintsil is probably going to be a best 11 caliber guy. He looks like
Albert Elise 2.0.
I was going to say he looks like better quality Cade Cowell. Like Cade Cowell if he had like more like dribbling ability.
Dribbling, finishing.
Yeah.
2 foot.
He's like so electric and just he's like a guy where when you have him on the field, like he could break any defense almost single-handedly. And that was something Cade Cowell could do, is just like be so electric he could just get past any defense. But he would also just like leave the ball 5 yards behind him or blast across over the whole team. Paintsil seems to have a little bit more of that end product kind of polish to him. Yeah, I don't know. This Galaxy squad looks really good. San Jose is starting to look a little down in the dumps, which is rough because I think I was pretty high on them at the beginning of the year. I had them at 10th place, so not super high.
I was high on them last year. After that first initial run kind of fizzed out and we saw the extended San Jose Earthquakes, that definitely cooled down my opinion on them. I have them missing playoffs again. So far, I've seen nothing to indicate otherwise. This team needs more players. This team, I wouldn't say a better coach. They've got a solid coach, at least on paper. But this team just needs a lot right now.
I would agree. There's a lot of work to be done. They have good pieces there. It's just they need the filler to kind of help build in around those guys.
Agreed. Next up, Colorado Rapids, a big club taking on Nashville. Gary Smith's homecoming, where he won MLS coach. Nashville coach who won it with the Rapids in 2010. You know what I was thinking of the other day? This is completely, well, not off the cuff, but we had 2009 Real Salt Lake wins MLS Cup. 2010 Colorado Rapids win MLS Cup. We talk about the Cascadia supremacy that was in these MLS Cups. We had back-to-back Rocky Mountain Cup MLS champs.
The cup belonged to Rocky Mountain, dude.
And
those Rocky Mountain Derby games must have been electric those years, dude. That would have been fun to watch.
I was going to say, I love just picturing, because Rapids beat Galaxy, so you have, Real Salt Lake beat the Galaxy, so you got this team from Utah who beat David Beckham, like Landon Donovan, these sorts of players, and won a trophy. Then you got like the Rapids, who you got Thierry Henry coming to the league, and Colorado Rapids took home MLS Cup led by Connor Casey.
I love that. I love that there was like probably not a ton back then, but like a decent amount of like global eyes on those games too, because of like Beckham and Henry. And then you got Colorado and RSL coming out on the better side of it.
Drew Moore and Ned Grabavoy just duking it out. This is a 1-1 game. We had an own goal and a penalty kick goal.
It's about right for these two teams.
I was going to say, pretty much what you'd picture. Zach Steffen looked a lot better in this game, had a good save in the thick of it, but this is going to seem like I'm wasting time on this segment. I wanted to talk about some new stadium traditions Colorado Rapids added to the club at Dick's Sporting Good Park. I was just perusing a couple weeks back, and I wanted to see what some different clubs were doing.
Can we talk about Toronto's new tradition after this?
The New England's.
Oh, it was New England, yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of not what sparked it, but it's right on par. So, new club and supporter sections. So they're doing this. They've been doing this for a little bit, but they get the man of the match oar. So if you win man of the match at Rapids, you get like a boat oar. And the C38 Colorado supporter section presents it. And they're the oar captain of the match. I like how it says too, they present this oar like when the final whistle sounds. So I mean, same with the Timbers, they do with the log slices. Picture you coming from Europe, you're like from the UK playing somewhere, and then you lose a game like 3-0 at home, but you get the oar man of the match, so you have to take this giant like boat oar. Also, I just love that the Rapids are doing this, because it just they have a kickoff chant. It's full stadium led by the C38, and it's Colorado Rapids. Back and forth. Full stadium.
Man.
Also, the corner kick clap. Join the stadium in a booming Rocky Mountain thunderclap ahead of each Rapids corner kick. The energy in the stadium picks up the players during a big set piece. Then,
oh yeah,
boo the left back. Make sure to boo the opposition's left back throughout the match. It doesn't say why. It doesn't say for a specific game. Just specifically if you're a left back playing at Colorado, expect to get booed.
Poor Taylor Washington was hearing it the entire game, dude.
Also, after the Rapids score, new goal song, Colorado by local band Paper Bird. And it says on the Rapids website, warning, the lyrics will stick with you. And then also, this one's kind of cool. They play Rocky Mountain High by John Denver after games as well.
That's the only cool one out of that entire list. That's the only one that actually makes sense. I love the Timbers like log slice thing that they do, but that's like very authentic and like has been a part of the club's history almost from the beginning.
There's too many teams starting these things.
And it feels like the rest of the league is trying so hard to kind of like have their own cool like niche thing, but it's not authentic. Like the thing with the Timbers is like that all started because a lumberjack guy liked the Timbers and just started showing up to the games and asked if he could bring his chainsaw. And then it just kind of morphed in, like Timber, like Jim just kind of morphed all this like culture into it.
Yeah, years and years and years ago.
Yeah, like this was back in like the 70s, 80s, like, and it was very authentic and like came from the fan base itself. I just absolutely despise these weird, like, it feels like it's just coming from like a very inauthentic, like front office, corporate-y kind of, hey guys, we're going to boo their left back this game. Everybody cheer in now and clap your hands for this corner kick. Like, it just, I feel like you could hear just some like radio host like over the intercom, like telling people what to do to like support their club. It just seems so ridiculous to me.
No hate on the USL whatsoever, but the one USL game I went to was Las Vegas Lights in Las Vegas, and it was exactly like that. It was like a radio voice-ish announcer guy. It was this guy, but he was like on the field and stuff. So like, well, not on the, you know what I mean?
Was he down like on the sideline with a microphone?
He was pretty much there and going up to like the crowd, like the far ends where like you're right by the field, but he'd go like, all right, Las Vegas Lights fans, and he would be like, Viva Lights, come on guys, and he would just be like hyping people up like a high school soccer game,
like through like the intercom system, or like,
yeah, through the intercom system with the microphone. So when it was a corner, he'd be like, all right, Lights fans, let's get loud, and he would just say these things like that. He was also doing anti-vaping ads throughout the game.
That sounds like, if you've seen like the Napoli guy, like in Serie A, they have a guy. So like in Napoli, they have a guy down like on the like track around the field, and he just will like, when they score, he goes down there and grabs like the microphone, and they do the thing where he'll yell to the crowd, and he'll say like the player's first name, and then the whole crowd chants the last name. But he's just
so they copied it from Seattle.
Yeah, basically. But they're very like, just so much passion, and like it's very intense. And then you have this guy in Las Vegas who's just probably doesn't even watch soccer. He just gets paid to be there as like a part-time gig. Like,
I mean, USL in-house stadium.
Can we talk about the New England game next? I mean, not much to talk about. Colorado 1-1 against Nashville. We covered probably the most exciting part of that game. But I got to talk about New England versus Toronto with their new pregame thing that they do.
Poor Scott Caldwell, so this game was 1-0. Toronto won in New England. Once again, decent crowd at the Revs, and they all had to witness this awesome thing. They're really leaning into the Tea Party, the Boston Tea Party.
Big old crowd there to witness Toronto win with like a quarter of the shots and like 30% possession. Oh man! But anyways, you want to break down what their pregame routine is?
Heck, I'll do my best. So they released their new Boston Tea Party kit, and all right, cool, whatever. You know, the kit looks cool. Like, history jives with New England area, obviously. Well, they wanted to appreciate former great Revs player Scott Caldwell, introduce him to the fans, have them, applaud him for his efforts on the pitch at his time during New England. Great. Love it when they show former players that appreciation. But this time, they're introducing a new stadium tradition. The Boston, what did they even call it? Did they just call it the Boston Tea Dump? Or
yeah, I think it's just called the tea dump, or like the tea throw or something like that.
And they mentioned, so they're like, oh, we're going to throw like a crate of tea like down into the harbor, pretty much is how they advertised it. So they give Scott Caldwell this Amazon UPS looking box with Toronto FC's logo on it, and he just like tosses it on the ground, and it just bounces a couple times and onto the concrete right behind the goal. And that was it. They got ratioed on Twitter because it was so awkward and anticlimactic. People were saying like, man, you couldn't have even got like a real crate that would have broken, or like put in a little pool on the bottom so you're throwing it into water, or actually made it be a real crate. Nope. Not the Revs.
Oh man, that was such a joke. You know what is even funnier is like, I don't know if you like watched the video or like saw the picture, like the amount of people who are all around who are like really excited, and they like have their phones out and they're like recording it happening. And the crowd is just hilarious to me.
I feel bad for them. Somebody else They have a good, I think, in my opinion, some people might think it's corny, decent tradition there where whenever they score, they have those guys who look like, 1700s colonial,
the Minutemen.
the
Dude.
Minutemen.
They were called the Minutemen. They had 3 guys fire off muskets into the sky.
Yeah,
And
kind of sweet in my opinion.
That was pretty cool, actually. I think they should have kept that because it seemed a lot more like cool, I guess, is the simple way to put it. Way cooler than having Scotty Caldwell throw a bouncy box down onto the track that just rolls around.
We should do see, for me, they got the engagement out of it, and in my opinion, if they change some things about it, they can make this a lot better, but I'm not super sold on it in general. We should do a ranking of all these stadium tradition things and put them in tiers because some of them are atrocious, some of them are decent. Me personally, I'm not a big fan of this newer age. You see it at some basketball games where they do these pre-game, right before the first kickoff whistle or tip-off for basketball. It's like Atlanta started doing their golden spike. All right, whatever. It's all right. It's nothing crazy. San Jose is ringing an alarm. Chicago is ringing an alarm as well. You got the Boston T-dump thing. You got all these random things. I don't know. I think it's better suited for a goal or a moment of celebration rather than right before something like that. Although if all these fans are cheering and going crazy, I don't know if a guy throwing a cardboard box on the concrete is going to be effective. That's just a weird one for me. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either, man. A lot of these traditions just feel like they aren't coming from the fans themselves because I feel like it's so obvious when it's like you said, they get ratioed on Twitter when any of this stuff comes out. Everybody's just nobody is actually liking this stuff. I feel like whenever you have traditions that come from the fans themselves, I think are actually cool. I'm trying to think of other ones off the top of my head. The Timbers is probably the most clear one to me just because it's, fresh in my mind. I'm a Timbers fan. The as much as I hate it, the Sounders, the sound wave, that one I would prefer way over any of the other ones you've recently mentioned. It's kind of cool having your own band there that plays feels like a college football-esque.
Yeah.
Or in Montreal when they had that bell or whatever.
Victory bell.
It feels cool when it comes more natural to the city and from the fan base.
Couple I don't mind is Dallas. They give their man of the match a cowboy hat.
Oh,
and it's just simple. It's not this gimmicky presentation. It's just give the guy a cowboy hat. It's Dallas. And he especially when they give it to a European guy or somebody from South America.
Ijara Mendy wearing it last week.
Yeah, it's simple. It makes sense with the club. It's not this demonstrative, over the top, corny thing. You're gonna hate this one, but I really enjoy it. The Minnesota Wonderwall thing, because at first I didn't know why this was a thing. And I thought it was they're just singing, like you said, they're just singing this popular song. Cool. That's it. It sounds cool. It sounds great when the fans are all singing. But that one started because when they were in NASL, so a while ago, one of their players brought a guitar to the game, pregame, and he was playing in the locker room or something. And when they won, he started just playing Wonderwall to be funny and stuff. And then it was a big win, so everybody just started singing and joining along with him. Somebody took a video of that, and then it got out on Twitter. It went online. So then the fans started singing it at games when they were in NASL and these small crowds, and then it became a full stadium thing. So,
see, that won me over. When I first heard that story about the whole Wonderwall thing, what I hated is the first year Minnesota was in the league, they just sang Queen songs instead of having soccer chants. They're just singing Queen songs during the game, and it just felt just a weird fan culture that I wasn't a fan of. But the one thing I want to touch on the Dallas one again. I actually really love that putting a cowboy hat on the man of the match. I don't know if you saw, but it was on Extra Time. I think it was David Goss who just absolutely flamed that tradition. Who just they were talking about Ijara Mendy wearing the hat, and they were yeah, he played well. Put that big stupid hat on him. He was just flaming cowboy hats.
Matt Doyle, I think, actually.
It was one of those freaking losers. I just remember I heard that and I was like, just feels like a very out of touch, like
Classic big New York.
Yeah, it feels like a very out of touch like media presence for a league that just like kind of disregards like the culture around different clubs. Like I don't know. It'd be like if like when Brian Schmetzer was like, "Oh, that lumberman."
Sorry, we don't have flamethrowers and all these. Yeah, that's really cool, dork.
That's the best way to show.
You know, it's funny actually. So some of the MLS stadiums, we were at the Timbers game, home opener. I got chased pretty good. He's losing it. I want to move on to the Seattle one.
I just picture Brian Schmetzer just like loves the flamethrowers. just man loves nothing more than a good flamethrower.
Oh, that's really neat. The Seattle game. Man. It was their home opener. They drew with Austin. We'll get to the game in a second. But they were showing like pregame, like when, the press people were in the stadium. They did a similar thing with like the lights kind of flickering off and on when they were walking out. And seems like a lot of the stadiums were doing something like that, little pregame light show. A lot of the Timbers fans I saw online hated it. The ones in the stadium I was with thought it was cool, which is classic. Seems like a lot of people online just find something to bug out a bit about. But Sounders fans were like similar to Portland fans. They were kind of like making fun of it. They're like, we're not a corporate MLS team. Like we have our own traditions and stuff. We don't want to like become like a football team, American football, and have these light shows and gimmicks. And a Portland fan was like, aren't you the team that has flamethrowers and a marching band when you score too, but the light show is like where you draw the line? I was like, oh.
And they play in a football stadium as well.
Anyway, Seattle hosting
the hallowed grounds of Lumen Field,
hosting Austin FC. Austin it was a 0-0 draw. Austin with a whopping 0.04 XG.
Austin has had a whopping 11 shots on the season.
I mean,
Seattle had 23 in this game.
They had only had one this game, I believe. Austin.
They had one on target. They had 2 shots total.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, what? Check yourself there, bud.
I mean, same old for Seattle. I mean, they haven't scored a goal from the run of play this year. Everybody knew who had been paying attention to MLS. This is a team that's going to struggle to find goals. That wasn't anything new. People are putting them at the top of their Western Conference predictions anyway, which I'm not saying is wrong. So far, though, hasn't looked great. Pedro de la Vega also came out precautionary for an injury, so their big signing of the offseason hopefully isn't out for long. But, I mean, yeah, Austin not feeling great when you play that poorly, but they stuck in. They parked the bus. They knew what they're doing. Fighting for that mean draw at Seattle, but really, really disappointing. Rui Diaz came close in stoppage time. He had a kind of a nut shot, actually hit the bar with the sick volley. But, yeah, point at home versus Austin.
Not good. Not good if you're Seattle. Not looking like a very promising start to a season that a lot of Seattle fans are pretty high about. And, I mean, I saw a lot of people even pipping them to be like Supporter Shield favorites. I mean, with how weak the West is this year compared to the East, they thought, Seattle's going to run away with it. They'll pick up a lot more easier points than teams in the East, but not looking like it's the best start. It seems like they have a lot more to figure out, and I don't know, maybe Brian Schmetzer's running out of ideas. Maybe the old nutty scientist is...
I think a lot of people online seem to be, I mean... And you kind of get these overreactions, which I would say, but also it feels like it's been the same problem for almost since 2022 post Champions League victory, where they kind of ran out of steam, having trouble score goals. But this Sounders fan on Rave Green TV, the post-game reaction, said it best. He said, "We lose to the best teams and we can't beat the worst teams. What does that make us?" And they were talking about pretty much, we've known these problems for the last 2 years, yet we're not making the moves we need to make. We knew goal scoring was going to be an issue. We've been trying to ride it out with Morris and Rui Diaz and trying Hebert as depth pieces. Didn't really pan out. So those guys were kind of venting their frustrations at the FO, and Brian Schmetzer saying, I mean, the players are giving it their all. They're just lacking that final piece. So whose fault is that? Other than your coaching staff, your FO, bringing in players. And I tend to agree. I'm not pushing the panic button if I'm Seattle, but their upcoming slate doesn't really get better. They're playing at Philadelphia next week, so that's going to be a tricky one.
Yeah, they've got some stuff to figure out, man. It's not looking too great for them going forward. I mean, their defense still looks solid. I can't really fault them there.
Yeah. I was going to say that. I will say, too, they've been missing a lot of key players. Yamar, Fry, Rusnak, Joe Paulo.
One thing that was cool to see in this game, though, that I kind of envy Sounders for is they had a kind of center mid CDM pairing of Obed Vargas and Josh Atencio. Two, both academy graduates, right?
Yep.
18 and 22 years old. That's a stellar thing. I mean, if they could hold on to those guys and just let them keep growing, that's a great pairing to have. I don't know. That's probably the highlight of the game for them is like they have two young academy graduates who are playing meaningful minutes for them as starters.
I was going to say Sounders, not a top-tier academy, but I'd say underrated with some of the guys they've produced. And
yeah, I would say the only thing that keeps them from being top tier is they hold on to their players rather than selling them on to Europe. So you don't see these guys move on and get their plaudits elsewhere. The one time they tried, Jordan Morris got injured almost immediately in England. So just the move didn't work out.
yeah, and I think that was too like just the mentality from Jorah, because I guess the outlier, yeah, you're right, would be, but Yedlin moving on. But that was more of a different era.
Yedlin went, yeah, that was kind of the first big one for them was Yedlin, and I don't know if, I mean, yeah, he was in Europe for a long time. Was he really that successful there? I mean,
I think
he got signed by a pretty poor Tottenham team and couldn't really even break into their lineup for a while, and then went to a Newcastle team in the championship for quite a while as well.
I think he was good for an MLS export in mid 2010s.
I'd say during that period of time, yeah.
I don't know if he was best 11, but he I think he has a good Seattle career. He won a Supporter Shield, an Open Cup, won a couple trophies with his hometown team, transferred to Europe, went to the national team, played in a couple World Cups, played like 7 years across the pond, and then came back to MLS. And
he's had a solid career, but yeah, I would say measuring his European success to other exports, he's not up there. I wouldn't even put him in like top 20. I'd say
maybe top 20, but yeah, I mean, he's definitely not in that top tier. But I think from Seattle's perspective, he's a successful like output of their academy. He
only one.
He ticked a lot of boxes. Well, in terms of transferring abroad, yeah.
I mean, you got Samuel Adeniran right now who's just tearing it up in the league. But yeah, I don't know. We can move on from this. I don't want to talk about Seattle much longer.
Portland Timbers hosting DC United. I had the pleasure of sitting in 38-degree weather on those benches we talked about.
Saved the best for last here.
Yeah, Portland goes up 2-0. DC ties it with 2 goals. DC looking pretty good, I'll say. They looked well coached. Definitely exposed Phil Neville in Portland second half.
This is a game where they could have easily beat us like 5-2. Maxime Crépeau
nuts debut
had an insane debut for the Timbers, making a lot of saves that should have been clear-cut goals.
2 like FIFA sweat goal opportunities.
2 like ones where it seemed like it may have been called back for offsides, but they let the play go, and he just still makes the save and kills the play. A lot of saves he makes where he doesn't even like palm it away. He just catches the ball and like clutches it in. It's an amazing debut for him. The Timbers, though, we talked about this before, and I don't want to I don't want to dwell on them too long, just because I don't. We talk about the Timbers.
This isn't a Timbers podcast. We appreciate
we talk
all
about
teams.
them quite a bit. It felt like where things went wrong is when we started to have to make substitutions. We don't have the depth that we need right now until we start getting those guys back from injury. I mean, and we talked about we finished the game with a back four of 4 center backs. There's a lot of miscommunication, it seemed like, out there. Guys didn't know exactly where they were playing when Phil Neville kind of changed the formation up. So that's where kind of the game fell apart. We seemed like we were largely in control until we started making substitutions, and then we kind of lost control of the game from then on.
Yeah, and I think 4 points at home, obviously you're disappointed to drop the 2, especially when you're up 2 goals. With 0 DPs on the field this year, with a lot of, missing Crépeau last match, missing their starting left back, their Evander gone, obviously, no real striker. They got Mora out.
Got Dairon Asprilla.
Yeah, Dairon Asprilla shifting in from the wing, which I was always high on. But
you see the stats. He's scored. Only him and Diego Valeri are the 2 Timbers players to score in 9 consecutive seasons.
He's retweeting also stuff like, Ned, pay the man. We want him to retire in Portland. And he's just retweeting.
It goes back to what we were saying earlier about the club legends, man. He's been there for 9 years now.
Yeah, he wouldn't want to uproot his family. And
getting close to a decade. Did you see his celebration after his goal, too? I had to kind of explain that to my girlfriend, and when we were there with her family watching it, but nobody really noticed it. And I was like, oh, he's calling out the front office, because he did the binocular celebration looking up towards the box seats where, all the front office staff and the big wigs are all hanging out. Yeah. So, yeah, Dairon Asprilla, though, pretty solid start to the year. He didn't affect the first game too much, but I thought he was a way bigger player in this game. Not just because he got a goal, but he seemed to have a little bit more effect on build-up play and whatnot.
Yeah, totally agree. Curious to see some possible reinforcements coming for Portland, either German Berterame or Cabecita Rodriguez. Both from, I like how you said too, you were like, I wish the Timbers utilized or prioritized getting talent from Liga MX, more.
Yeah.
And look
look
where we're at. But
it seems not like a proven pipeline, but pretty much a proven pipeline to success in MLS. A lot of the guys who come from Liga MX tend to be pretty successful in MLS. It's not a huge move for them. In a lot of these major cities, there's still a pretty similar, wouldn't say similar culture, but they can find their pockets of Mexican culture and South American kind of culture in these cities. So, I don't know. I think it's a good move. Either of those guys that you mentioned would be a huge move for the Timbers, and still another DP spot open for them to make some improvements. We'll see where that final DP spot goes, but I don't know, a lot of options for the Timbers. They have so much roster flexibility that I'm not worried about what this team looks like. Even though they might be a little shallow right now with the injuries they have, they got a lot of flexibility, and I think they're just ironing out this one big signing, and then they'll kind of go through and strengthen with a few more smaller signings.
I was going to say, if this was a team who picked up only 1 point or 0 points so far at home, even with these signings, I'd feel worried as a fan. But since they've been treading water and as of now are top of the table, it's early on, obviously, I think it's reason to be optimistic. Same with DC. 4 points. They were missing Benteke this game, a late scratch. Christian Fletcher looked really good. Aaron Herrera looked really good. DC looked solid.
Mateus Cleach.
That guy was going.
Even though he was just, kind of being a little bit of a jerk during the game. He looked solid, though. He scored the penalty, but also was kind of all over the place.
Was active on the ball. Yeah, I think.
You know what was weird? When I first saw him, I don't even know how much alike they looked. I thought it was Perry Kitchen.
Similar haircut,
I thought it was Perry Kitchen as soon as I saw him, and then there was
got that flat haircut and the stubble beard.
Yeah, and then who was it? I think it was Pirani, I thought was some other ex DC United player. I don't remember who though. But it was funny. Like I just had this old image of DC, and they got these lookalike guys who are better players. But
Then Perry Kitchen? Are you kidding me?
you think, we gotta compare Perry Kitchen and Mateus Klich. We gotta do a deep dive on that one of these episodes.
That'll be an extended, just separate pod. That's the week in MLS, though. We're gonna bit of a shorter one. It's kind of for your viewing, listening pleasure. You don't have to dedicate a whole half of your shift to this podcast.
Thought we'd keep it nice, short and sweet, since you're gonna have about 7 hours of podcasts to listen to right before this.
So that is like a full shift almost. We'll get you a full shift, rounded off to a clean number.
That would be crazy for somebody to clock into their workday and just listen to us for a full 8 hours.
I was gonna say I'm fortunate enough at times to be able to just throw in earbuds and a podcast, throw in my AirPods, but I couldn't imagine doing it like all day, like nonstop. That would be. I couldn't, first of all, but
I'm just gonna start playing our podcast at my work over the speakers,
like the intercom stuff,
so people have to listen to it.
We're gonna throw it back, do a classic MLS Net Boys game, like only us MLS Net Boys would do, even though we took it off the internet. But this is our twist on it. It's Who Am I? You want to explain?
We haven't done this in quite a while. Essentially, this is a game that tests our knowledge, our passion. I don't know if I want to go that far, but
it's my favorite MLS game we do.
This is a fun game. Jacob absolutely destroys me at this game until, for whatever reason, the one time I think I did better than you was the Mexican, like Liga MX and MLS players.
We did like a Leagues Cup themed.
Yeah. But other than that, Jacob has a knack for just killing me in this game. Essentially, we pick a obscure or random MLS player. Sometimes we do it with a theme, and then we come up with 3 different clues and that are kind of help us figure out who this person is. We'll say, who am I? And then give the clue. If they get it on the first clue, they get 3 points. The second clue, they get 2 points. If they get it on the last one, they get 1 point. If they don't get it at all, 0 points. Kind of a fun way to test our knowledge, but I'm curious. I've tried keeping it within your grasp because I know I could just go absolutely obscure and stump you, and it may come to that one day, but I thought I got there once. When I did the Tally Hall pick, I thought I had gone obscure enough, and you got it like on the first guess or something.
That was a Hail Mary for me. I don't know. I didn't, at least with this one. I try not to go too obscure, like somebody who's made a notable amount of appearances, not like
not just some guy that's like
a Revs 2 player,
2 appearances and hardly played.
Somebody where it's not just like Messi or Landon Donovan or Mike, like those sort of iconic MLS players, but where if you've watched MLS for a decent amount of time, you'd be like,
this is the niche appeal. Players within the last 10 years is generally where we go. Occasionally we go a bit further back, but
I was going to say, I try to not fan further back than like 2013 season. And obviously there's players who played before that who continued playing afterwards, but nothing into like the 90s consistently.
Yeah, that's a little too before our time. You want to start us off or you want me to start us off?
I can start us off. We're doing, I don't know if did you mention winter transfer themed?
Oh, yeah. I didn't even mention that. So we decided the theme this time, since the season's just kicking off. We're still technically in the winter transfer window for MLS. We wanted to go with players who have transferred to an MLS team during the winter transfer window. It doesn't have to be somebody that transferred from outside the league. Doesn't have to be a transfer that was necessarily just in January, since that's the traditional winter transfer window. We're just going MLS winter transfers. Who do you got for me?
All right. Who am I? Winter MLS edition. I played with Liam Ridgewell, Clint Dempsey, and Ben Foster.
Brad Guzan.
It is not Brad Guzan.
Dang it.
That's not a bad guess, though, honestly.
Those are all guys that played in England, and I know Brad Guzan had a little bit of time over there.
Who am I? So, clue 1, I play with Liam Ridgewell, Ben Foster, and Clint Dempsey. Next, I have won trophies such as the oh man, I completely am spacing the name of this now. It's an obscure trophy, and the other 2 trophies I'll say, I have won an MLS Supporter Shield, U.S. Open Cup, and also the Football League Cup in England. That has been renamed the Capital One Cup.
This is a guy who's played in England. Obviously played in MLS. I'm assuming in England is when he played with all 3 of those guys. It had to have been when he played with Ben Foster. Dempsey was at Fulham. He said Liam Ridgewell. Liam Ridgewell had a little bit of a stint, most notably at West Brom. But I think he was also at... He was at a couple clubs in England, I know, right? Because I know Liam Ridgewell played with Ben Foster as well. But, oh man. So he's won U.S. Open Cup, Supporter Shield, and the League's Cup, or the league, whatever it is.
The league, the...
I'm trying to think of other guys who've gone over there and played in England. But my issue is I'm thinking of American guys right now. So I immediately went like Brad Friedel or like Casey Keller. But I don't think Casey Keller went across the pond.
He did. I don't know.
I don't think he was... It didn't have as extended of a career as like Brad did. Because Brad Friedel had a really long career.
Underrated career.
With like Aston Villa over there. Which actually I believe Liam Ridgewell played at Aston Villa.
I think you're right.
But then he would have connected with Dempsey at the national team. But did he win a Supporter Shield in MLS? I don't know how much time he really had in MLS. It's probably not even going to... Why am I thinking of only goalies? I literally just named 3 American goalies that went across.
That is kind of like the player profile. I feel like that was most likely to go over there.
Oh. Maybe I'm thinking about it wrong. Maybe he started over there and came. Is it Jermaine Defoe?
It's a really good guess, but no.
Dang it.
All right. My next clue is probably going to give it away, so I'm going to preface this with the League Cup he won. It was with Birmingham City with Liam Ridgewell.
With Liam Ridgewell.
This player, so clue 1 was he played with Liam Ridgewell, Ben Foster, Clint Dempsey, won the Football League Cup in England, Supporter Shield, and U.S. Open Cup at MLS. He won MLS Goal of the Year in his time in Major League Soccer.
Is it Obafemi Martins?
It's Obafemi Martins.
Dang it. I thought of him on the last clue, too, but I was like, nah, no way. I didn't think you would pick a Sounders.
Ben Foster at Birmingham City with Liam Ridgewell.
That's actually where Ben Foster had... I knew he had a connection with Liam Ridgewell purely because there's like a story he tells on a podcast, and he brings up Ridgie. He like talks about like Liam Ridgewell during the podcast.
Love it.
All right. You ready for my first one? So I got 1 point on the board. All right. First clue. This isn't going to give you much here. I have scored 84 goals across my career and played for 6 different MLS teams.
MLS career for goals or just career?
Total career.
6 different.
Bit of an MLS journeyman, though, I will tell you that. So he spent almost his entire career in MLS.
Oh man. Is it?
This first clue didn't give you much. I'll be fair. I can add to it real quick.
Is it Connor Casey?
It is not. It is not Connor Casey. Second clue. I wrote down 4 clues here, so we'll say that's a burner clue because I added an extra one.
I appreciate that.
My first ever goal was against LA Galaxy in a 1-1 draw in 2008.
2008.
I had those as 1 clue at the start, and I split them, and I probably should have kept them as 1. I was trying to give you a couple kind of obscure things. So 2008 was his first MLS goal, but he was an MLS journeyman, so you got to think his career extended well beyond that time.
That's interesting.
And it was against LA Galaxy.
Against the Galaxy. I want to say it, but I don't. Oh, man. How about not Robert Earnshaw. I don't know why I was saying it. Ryan Johnson.
Not Ryan Johnson. That's a good shout. I love a Ryan Johnson shout. All right, second clue. I have played with Sana Nyasi.
Bringing out the big guns here.
Roger Levesque. Zach McMath, Freddie Adu, and Jack McInerney.
That's like my all-time five-a-side. Like Nightmare Squad.
That's what I was laughing about when I was making the list of like people he's played with. Was like that squad of Sana Nyasi, Roger Levesque, Zach McMath, Freddie Adu, and Jack McInerney about to link up for the Creators League.
You got solid goalkeeper in the pipes. You got Roger Levesque. He's just going to be annoying, like Brad Evans and Brian Schmetzer. Sana Nyasi would be a terror in five-a-side. And then you got Freddie Adu, who's going to leave halfway to sell vacuum cleaners door to door. Oh,
Don't
man.
forget about Jack McInerney,
Jack
dude.
Mac bagging a couple goals. Nyasi and Levesque's got to be Seattle, because I know Nyasi played there, which I didn't really know, but we were talking about him a couple weeks ago, and I checked his career path. 84 goals, you said?
84 goals.
Wow, that's a decent amount. That is a decent amount. And 6 MLS teams. Man.
6 MLS teams. You want me to name those players again, or you got them in your mind?
I got him, I think. Sebastian Letou.
That is who it is. It is Sebastian Letou. That is that's some solid knowledge right there. I thought you might be able to get that one. I didn't want to make it too hard, but I knew I had to challenge you.
I was just going Seattle to Philly with Jack Mack.
Yeah,
and
that's exactly the connection there.
That
Freddie Adu had a very short trial at Philly while he was there.
I was gonna say, I remember that's when Portland entered the league, if I recall correctly. It was a while ago. Yeah.
He played for Seattle, Philadelphia, Vancouver Whitecaps, New York Red Bulls, Colorado Rapids, and DC United.
Dang,
quite the career.
Yeah, he reminds me of he's like the French or whatever nationalities. He's like the French Kenny Cooper. They look like kind of similar to me.
Similar play style
he's like
as well.
He's like a different like skin of him, like on a video game. But
different Fortnite skin.
Solid great player for a team in their early days. Respect.
I agree. All right, hit me with it. What do you got?
All right, next one. So this player has played for and against the MLS All-Stars.
Ooh.
For and against the MLS All-Stars.
Jordan Shaqiri.
It's a good shout, but no.
Dang it.
So, clue 1, he played for and against the MLS All-Stars. Next clue, you thought you had a list there. He played with Nigel Reo-Coker, Ashley Young, Brad Guzan, Kyle Walker, Gabby Agbanalahor, and Emil Heskey.
Okay. Wow. Can you run through that one more time? That was a wild list.
Nigel Reo-Coker.
Okay.
Ashley Young, Brad Guzan, Kyle Walker, Gabby Agbanalahor, and Emil Heskey.
Man, what the heck? So I'm guessing he played at whoever this is played at Aston Villa at some point to have that connection with Ashley Young and Brad Guzan. Oh, I know Guzan didn't play at Aston Villa. That's right. That's Friedel. I know. He was.
Guzan did.
He was at Aston Villa.
I actually.
Oh man.
I'll interrupt you. Friedel was on this list too. I just didn't put him on there.
So he played with Friedel as well.
Friedel and Guzan were on the roster at the same time.
Okay. Nigel Reo-Coker. I'm trying to figure if that was some obscure, like he played for some random English team at some point, or if that was when he was in the league, because he was, oh man. And you said Emil Heskey, which would have been, I believe, I can't remember if it's Tottenham or Arsenal, one of those random London clubs.
Kyle Walker.
And Kyle Walker. Kyle Walker would have been Tottenham. So I'm guessing Tottenham / Aston Villa player who also played in MLS at some point. Is this Jermaine Defoe?
The popular guess these days. It's not Jermaine Defoe.
I got him in my mind, and I just can't think past him.
That's not bad, honestly. I'll give you a couple more players. I don't know if this will help, but so Brad Friedel. That's who I meant. He was there too.
Okay.
Stephen Ireland there. I don't know if that helps. Darren Bent.
Man, this is really ringing back to my Aston Villa knowledge right here.
Eric, I always forget this guy's name. The U.S. right back, Eric Lichaj.
I have no clue how to say that name.
I'm surprised they had so many like Americans on
guys
this team.
there. Huh.
Last clue though, so I'll run through them again. So this player played for and against the MLS All-Stars. Played with in their career Nigel Reo-Coker, Ashley Young, Brad Guzan, Kyle Walker, Brad Friedel, Gabby Agbonalahor, and Emil Heskey. And this last clue is they captained their team at a FIFA World Cup. Their country, sorry.
Captain their country at a World Cup. Give me Tim Cahill.
It's not Tim Cahill.
I don't know why that went into my mind immediately.
It's Michael Bradley.
No. Oh, my gosh. I forgot that guy had a career in England.
Loan spell at Aston Villa, where he played that Villa team. Yeah, had.
Whenever I think of his, like, European career, I always think of his time at Roma for some reason.
So Roma sticks out. He was in solid. Like, he gets trashed on these days, but, I mean, he went from the Metro Stars, New York, now the Red Bulls, from 18 years old, went to the Dutch League, the Eredivisie, to Heerenveen, had the record for most goals in a season in Europe by an American at the time. Then he went to Borussia Mönchengladbach, almost played 100 games there, went to Villa on loan, Chievo in Serie A, and then Roma on a solid Roma team. Looking at the players he'd played with, I didn't want to pick any of those guys like De Rossi or Totti because I feel like that would have gave it away.
Yeah.
But yeah, that 20
that Aston Villa, I knew it had to have been an Aston Villa like connection there somewhere.
Yeah.
I just couldn't think. I totally forgot he went to Aston Villa.
Kyle Walker was on loan there too, which I
had a feeling
about.
He was somewhere else before Tottenham or had a stint somewhere else, but I don't know.
And then Nigel Reo-Coker. There was a lot of MLS ties in this
one thing. Aston Villa team.
In 2011, you had Friedel, you had Bradley, obviously, Brad Guzan, Nigel Reo-Coker. Strange.
Wild. Respect. We love Michael Bradley on this podcast.
Same here.
All right, I got my next one for you. Who am I? I have played for 5 different MLS teams and 2 national teams. I received my U.S. citizenship in 2013.
2013, wow. Oh, man. 2013. How many MLS teams did you say?
5 MLS teams.
Oh boy, that's tricky. He didn't quite play for 5, I don't think, but Jermaine Jones?
That is incorrect. Next clue. My teammate Donley Borman, myself, and a 2012 Super Draft first-round pick were used on one end of a trade for my club to acquire Dwayne De Rosario. So his club traded him, Donley Borman, and a 2012 first-round Super Draft pick in order to acquire Dwayne De Rosario.
Dwayne De Rosario. Oh, man. So that's like 2011. Oh, jeez. Man, what have you cooked up here?
You'll know who this guy is. I can guarantee you that.
2013, what was it in 2013? He switched nationalities? Or
2013 is when he received his U.S. citizenship.
U.S. citizenship. So I guess, did you say he played on 2 national teams? Was that a clue?
He played for 5 MLS teams and 2 national teams.
Okay, that's what it was. Man, that's obscure. How about, boy, I know this is wrong, but I'm thinking De Rosario played at the Red Bulls, so give me, no, Jeff Cameron.
It is not Jeff Cameron. Solid shout. That is that era. Final clue. I played the bulk of my MLS career with Columbus Crew, amassing 130 appearances, but only scoring 8 goals during this time.
It's not Nagby, is it?
No. I'll let you have another guess. This was before Nagby at Columbus.
Man, who the heck? January signing, 2 national teams, 5 MLS. Oh, duh. That wouldn't be Nagby. 5 MLS clubs. Who on earth played for the Columbus Crew that played on 2 different national teams? That's crazy.
He spent most of his career at Columbus. He still played for 4 other teams. But he had 130 appearances for Columbus.
Michael Parkhurst?
It is not Michael Parkhurst.
You
want me to list the teams to you?
Sure.
See if you can get it here. So he was at New York Red Bulls, went to Toronto FC, then Columbus, then Vancouver, then Chicago Fire, and then went to FC Edmonton and then Maryland Bobcats.
Red Bulls to
Toronto.
From
Toronto to Columbus. He was at Columbus for 6 years, then went to Vancouver, then Chicago, and then that was the end of his time in MLS.
Man, I am
You stumped on this one?
holding on for dear life on this one, honestly. I am not sure. Can you give me a position? I've already lost this, but is he a winger?
He is let me make sure. He's a midfielder. I think he played center mid, if I remember correctly. I think he was kind of all throughout the midfield. You want the 2 national teams he played for?
Sure. That'll help, actually.
United States and Cameroon.
Cameroon. Oh, man. Tony Chani?
It is Tony Chani. I knew that would be the way to get you, but that's why I didn't include that originally.
That came from the deepest fabric of my mind, just like when I was in 8th grade looking at MLS Reddit chat boards.
Tony Chani in November of 2015 received his first call up to Cameroon, for the World Cup qualifying. But he got an injury during a match with Columbus, so he withdrew from it. Then in 2016, he got called up for the United States national team for a friendly, played against Iceland, and then I think since it was a friendly, he didn't become cap-tied, and then he played for Cameroon in the 2017 Cup of Nations. He played 2 games. So he had 1 cap for the U.S. and 2 caps for Cameroon.
I love that it was sandwiched in too.
Yeah, it was Cameroon, got injured, went to the U.S., played a friendly, then went to Cameroon.
Man,
Respect for the ball knowledge there.
That's
I
a
wanted
good pick.
I wanted you to get that one. Tony Chani is that's a certified MLS sicko right there.
That's a certified.
If anybody knows who that guy is, he had a pretty respectable career, honestly. I mean, he made his name at Columbus, but yeah, he was used in that trade from New York to Toronto. So Toronto offloaded De Rosario to New York and acquired Chani in that trade.
That's crazy. Yeah, I don't really remember his New York or Toronto days. The only ones I can remember is Crew and then a tiny bit of Vancouver. But
yeah, he didn't really do too much after that. I mean, he only had 13 appearances for Chicago, only 27 for the Crew, but he was only for Vancouver. He was only at Vancouver for a year though. But yeah, 6 years at Columbus. They definitely held on to that guy for a while. That's it. That's it for Who Am I?
That's all I got.
This is a little bit of a shorter episode, isn't it?
Not even 2 hours.
Wow. That is short by our standards, but honestly, not a bad thing. We got some predictions, though. We got some game predictions to go through here. Honestly, a pretty fun upcoming week of MLS games. You got some cool cross-conference games. You got Portland and New York, Philly and Seattle, Orlando, Minnesota, just to name a few. I think it's going to be a fun... I don't want to jinx it, but I feel like it's going to be a high-scoring week in MLS. I feel like the third, fourth week is kind of like where you hit this. Like some teams are really gelling, some teams are not, and the morale is low. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens here.
Yeah, it's because it's been about now by the weekend about 2 months since they've all been practicing and doing preseason and all this. Probably finally getting up to speed at least. So I agree.
Yeah. First up, though, we got RSL hosting Colorado. I think we're on the same page here. I picked some spicy games, but I think we agree a little bit more this week.
The Rocky Mountain staying in Salt Lake.
I'm going RSL 3-1. I think they're just red hot after that game against LAFC, despite it not really being in very convincing fashion play-wise. Colorado also still just trying to figure themselves out against a RSL team that kind of knows themselves already. I'm going 3-1 here.
I'm going 2-0 RSL. Similar thoughts. I would love to see a
Colorado goal.
I mean, yeah. I'd love to see this because Salt Lake has dominated this rivalry, but even more than that, just some like life, I guess, into it. Some bad blood, some fierce games. The last time I can remember it being kind of fierce was like when Tim Howard came back to MLS with the Rapids, and he was like saving penalty kicks and turning around and like yelling at
kicking the goal
people
and stuff.
Stuff like that makes the games more fun.
You want to see a new RSL pregame tradition?
They've got a solid one already. I hope they don't change it. When they sing the Believe anthem, I think is what it's called, but.
I don't know. I think it'd be funny to see them come up with some weird corporate, like, odd pregame tradition.
The Real Salt Lake Mountain Crown.
Everybody, this game, we're going to cheer for our number 10 every time he touches the ball.
You joke about it, but that's
something that would happen.
Yeah.
Next up, though, we got Toronto hosting Charlotte. I don't know. I think this is a little bit of a wild card because Toronto,
two kind of hot teams, actually.
Yeah, two teams that didn't really look like they're going to be that good, but are looking kind of good. I'm putting my faith in Charlotte, though. I think Toronto I'm still not convinced by their parts, and it seems like any day this happened before. Like Bernadeschi and Insigne looked quality. They looked like they were bought in, and then like a switch flipped. And I think that's going to happen any day now with this locker room.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I just think this is their home opener. There's more of a buzz in the air. They've got a solid coach, it seems like. They're well organized, and I believe in Toronto's match-winning players on the day. Insigne, Bernadeschi, more than Charlotte's. But I can see it going either way. But I'm going 2-1 Toronto at home.
I'm going to 2-1 Charlotte on the road. pulling out a big dub against Toronto.
Tuiloma brace.
Tulioma brace. Free kick and bicycle kick. Next up, we got Atlanta hosting the New England Revolution. New England bringing the tea party to Atlanta. I still can't get over how stupid that is, dude. So silly.
That's awesome.
I think we're gonna agree on this one. New England hasn't looked that great at the start. They've been playing a lot of games with Champions League and everything. It's not clicking quite yet under Caleb Porter. I'm going Atlanta 2-0. They're at home. You know the crowd's going to be going crazy. They have a really solid squad. They don't really have any significant injuries right now to deal with. So I think Atlanta's going to be able to handle this game pretty comfortably.
I agree. I think, yeah, same as you said, going to be kicking New England kind of when they're down in the mud. If New England wins this, that would be a huge upset. But
that would be, and I wouldn't put it past a Caleb Porter squad to do something like that either.
It feels like, yeah, Caleb Porter will get a win in a situation like this, and he'll kind of jumpstart the season. Just get carried by like a Carlos Hill like banger.
He's like the salty dog of coaches. Like he is like if Jack Jewsbury coached an MLS team, dude.
Dude, I went down a rabbit trail the other day. It was on my Friday. I was up late. I was on the couch just looking up some stuff. Found the video of Jack Jewsbury announcing he was going to retire. And tugs in the heartstrings a little bit. You got Nagby getting emotional. He was like a father, mentor figure. Good times in Portland.
I wish Jack Jewsbury stayed in soccer. Like I wish instead of doing like real estate or whatever he's doing now, like selling houses in Salem, Oregon, I wish he was like somehow involved in the front office or like on the coaching staff. Like that guy was just he was like the Jordan Henderson of the MLS.
He was our Henderson.
Like just a good leader, like amazing like communication on the field.
I think it's telling too. The MLS Journeyman podcast, which is another bunch of salty dogs. You got Dan Gargan and Dax McCarty, who's still playing, which is funny for his perspectives on there. And then Alan Gordon. And they have different MLS guests. They had Nagby on the show. It was right before MLS Cup. And it was either right before or right after. I forget. Either way, they're in that MLS Cup mode. And obviously all the talk with Nagby was, this is his 4th championship game. Comparing, like they wanted him to talk about different teams. Whenever he talked about Portland, he talked about them a good amount, actually, more than some of the other squads, but he talked about the camaraderie, like the locker room, like it was just like a special group of players. And whenever your team has that, I know we feel that with Portland, but like that 2017 Toronto or when Seattle won, their first MLS Cup or the Donovan Keane days, it's like a special time as a fan.
I completely agree. It was a sad day watching old
Captain Jack
retire. I still get memories on my Snapchats from like the day that he like retired in the stadium. It's a sad day.
Then Portland needed to get a point on the road or a win in the playoffs the next game, and then lost like 4-1 to Vancouver
after he kept our playoff hopes alive like all year with. What is this picture you're showing me right now?
It's New England Revolution on Twitter. They said fit check for the gaffer, and it's a picture of Caleb Porter. Just
love it.
Absolutely, just
dad mode engaged right there. I love that, dude. Looks like a Beaverton dad if I've ever seen one.
Rich Beaver. Nobody else is gonna know what that means, dude. If they don't live in Oregon.
It's like a Portland suburb, but for our listeners in Belgium to try and comprehend that. Anyways, we should wrap it up there. Thank you all for listening. It's been a fun pod getting back into it.
Yeah, we got some Route 1 gameplay to maybe do on clubs tonight. So
That is true. Thank you all for listening. Leave us a like, leave us a rating, follow us on X, send us emails, and as always, who is it now? Jan Gregush?
Preston Judd, man.
Preston Judd.
Fresh off a goal. That's the first time we can say that with our closing MLS name.
Hey,
Keane Hughes played, 3 minutes last year?
If he's given a chance up top, I'm guaranteeing.
Who, Keegan Hughes?
I'm guaranteeing A bullet header. Absolute just picture a Serena Williams like spiked like serve. That's a Preston Judd
Like
header
that.
right there. Just a freaking bullet.
Oh, I thought you meant Keegan Hughes up top. I was gonna say,
Yeah, Keegan Hughes up top, and he's scoring a bullet header, dude.
dude, the man can't get playing time in his position. He's gonna take Cucho's spot. This random depth center back.
They
gets thrown
haven't
in.
tried. All I'm saying is they haven't tried it. Maybe I have more of a strategic mind than Wilfred Nance.
That's like
That's
throwing.
all I'm saying.
That's like throwing 2020 like Jackson Reagan up instead of Rui Diaz in the lineup.
Hey, we've seen weirder things in MLS. We used to have goalies sub out so they could play striker.
That's true. The streets won't forget Mike McGee going in goal in the 2012 Cali Clasico.
Saving a total of 2 bouncing, like, trickling balls towards them.
How come that happens whenever you see a team? This is last closing thought here, but whenever you see a team, whether that's Harry Kane and for Tottenham or whatever it is, when a field player has to step in the net, it feels like the opposing team never gets like a legitimate shot in. It's like pro clubs when you like, oh, they got a user keeper, and then nothing changes and you play worse.
I know.
Have you noticed that?
Yeah, it is weird. I feel like you rarely see. Maybe it's because like those moments where they don't get scored on are highlighted so much more than like. Imagine if like you have like Kamal Miller goes in goal in the next game and they slam 5 past him.
Kamal Miller wearing like short sleeve goalie purple shirt.
It's just looks like a kid trying to save shots, like just bouncing balls go underneath him and stuff. Like, I don't think that would be one that would be highlighted for many years to come.
That's true.
But that would be kind of funny though. This year in Seattle, decision day, Sounders clinging on. They just need a point to make it into playoffs. And he got Jackson Reagan at goal.
Dude, I could just picture his eyes being like bigger than his head pretty much.
Somewhere, somebody in a suburb of Seattle was looking at their high school bully just getting scored on.
Is that what I said one time? This is like a therapy for me and you talking about different scenarios the Sounders season can implode from the Timbers.
Just Daron Asprilla just scores and does a backflip. Oh, man.
This has gone off the rails at the end
wrap
here.
This up. This is getting bad. Thank you all for listening. As always, Preston Judd.
Preston Judd.
Come on the show.